If you are a beginner cyclist, then this video is for you. I'm here in Dubai and I got to ride with 3 of my clients discussing things from power and force and velocity all the way to preparing for your first race and the mental aspect that's involved in racing. And so we talk about a lot. These interviews are recorded. If you like them, watch the rest of this video and check them out, and we'll catch you soon. Enjoy. All right, let's give some context for these rides so you kind of know who I'm talking to, what they're struggling with, and if it even applies to you in the first place. Number 1 is a very new beginner cyclist. He is still trying to learn how to pedal with clipless. He's still trying to understand what his strengths and weaknesses are on the bike. And he just went and signed up for a huge 190-kilometer race. And so he's a little bit intimidated. In our session together, we talk a lot about the mental aspect of these races. You know, when you're physically not prepared, that's one thing. But even if you are physically prepared, mentally it's still going to be a challenge, especially if it's your first race or first event and it's way beyond what you're normally used to in training. This is going to hurt.
There's going to be some point where you're like, I'm in so much pain and I'm not doing this. If you can stick with it, because most likely it's going to happen probably around, this third out where your body's not used to this anymore. Like you've done 2 hours, no problem. That third hour where your body's not used to it anymore is where you're going to be like, this sucks. But if you can get past that third hour, that's like the dark hour. If you can get past that, then you can make it past the rest.
Pain is inevitable. It's going to happen. Really, it's about how you frame the pain, especially if you've only done a maximum 2-hour ride, 60 kilometers. 190 is a huge step forward from that. And so when we're talking in this session together, I'm kind of walking him through the fact that there's going to be pain. It's inevitable. But the good thing is it's not just you who's going through the pain. Every other cyclist is also in the same pain as you. And really getting through it is just understanding that you're all in this together. Are you going to be the one to quit?
Being in a group helps. It moves you a lot faster. And you don't want to be the person who quits around other people, right? You can see they're in back pain and they're doing that stretch out their back and then you're seeing like, oh, my hands are in pain, my neck's in pain, like you're seeing everyone's in pain. Really, the race is who can endure the pain the longest, the most. That's cycling at the end of the day.
Client number 2 is a little bit more of an amateur cyclist. He took about 4 months off the bike, work got really busy, and he just started riding again. And we talked about some of his strengths and weaknesses. Because he's a little bit of a heavier guy, he has the ability to create massive amounts of power. But aerobically speaking, especially after taking 4 months off the bike, he's lacking. And so what I was noticing is even in his cadence, he was putting a lot of force down through the pedals, but his cadence was very slow, maybe 50 or 60 RPM. And that was telling me that he's a lot more stronger with the muscular side than the aerobic side, because power equals force times velocity. So the watts that you can put out here equals the newtons that your legs are generating, the force that you're generating, versus the velocity in RPM.
You take your force in newtons and you take your velocity in RPM, and those two things make up power. And so when we're trying to either increase or decrease your power, those are what we play with. Either how hard you're pushing in the pedals or how fast or slow you're spinning the pedals.
So if you're able to generate a lot of force, but your velocity is really slow, that's going to put a lot of stress in the joints. And it's telling me you do have a lot of force generating capacity. Automatically, just as it happens, bringing the cadence up, moving your legs faster and faster and faster, bringing the RPM up, it's going to make your blood pump more, your heart work harder, and you're going to need a bigger engine to be able to support that. And so for this client, that resonated with him. He could tell that he is able to produce a lot of force in the pedals, also because of his strength training background. Whereas aerobically, he felt like he was not able to endure past a 1 hour, 90-minute or 2-hour session where he was just gassed. And so that's something that we were able to discuss and plan in our training accordingly.
And so when we're trying to either increase or decrease your power, those are what we play with. Either how hard you're pushing in the pedals or how fast or slow you're spinning. So that's why when I wanted to see how fast you're able to, I kind of want to look at the mechanics. Okay. And so what I noticed just off the bat is, I'll kind of show you an example. You were kind of like, okay, which is not bad. It makes sense. Okay. Because especially you haven't ridden in 4 months, so your body's not used to the bike right now. Yes. And there's almost a lack of core stability when you're pushing hard like that. So the second thing, that's something we can work on as well in the gym. Okay.
For client number 3, also an amateur cyclist, a little bit on the older side, I believe around 67 years old. And his main thing was actually a nutrition problem. He was struggling with overeating at nighttime. And this is a very common struggle, not just in cyclists, but people as a whole. I've had a lot of people come and tell me, I binge eat at nighttime. I ate like 2,500 calories last night. I don't know why. But after digging a little bit deeper, we found with this client and with most of the other people I talked to, he skipped breakfast and skipped lunch. Now, it's not a bad thing to skip your meals. It's really not, especially if you're not hungry. Like this client was not hungry at breakfast, but he normally is hungry at lunch and skipped that meal too because he was too busy. And so now dinner is the only meal. Now this kind of mimics an intermittent fasting, like the 20-hour where you only eat once a day, and that's fine. But most people can't control themselves. And so what happens is because he skipped these 2 meals, not that you have to have 3 meals a day, it's not the case here, but he skipped a time where his body was hungry and he binge ate later uncontrollably. And then he started feeling guilty about it. And so what we actually decided to start focusing on is making conscious effort to eat lunch or just eat when he's hungry. What we noticed is when dinner comes around, he is no longer binge eating. He's no longer overeating and then feeling guilty and then punishing himself with a ride. You don't want your rides to be punishments. You want to ride because you enjoy the ride. And then what we notice is he's actually able to eat dinner without over binging and actually enjoy his ride in the morning, not thinking that it's a punishment for what he did the night before.
What happens with a lot of clients I've noticed is if they skip a meal at the beginning of the day or in the middle of the day, then because they're so hungry, they'll overeat at dinner. And it's just be so much, they'll be eating and eating and eating, they can't control it. And so actually, if you can almost control your hunger levels earlier in the day, so eat smaller meals or just eat more often, you'll be able to control because you won't be as hungry.
So those are the 3 clients that I was able to see this week in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And it was a real blessing to be able to work with my clients that way. By the way, if you are either a beginner or amateur cyclist who you want to take your training to the next level, but also want to train for a higher purpose, whether it be to perform better at work or even to make more money, whether it be to be a better leader, be a better spouse, be a better parent, or whether it be to crush your training, crush your events and push yourself past your limits, go ahead and shoot me a DM on Instagram. I'm happy to chat. Ciao.